The NBA season has finally arrived, which unfortunately means I'll have to go back to actually thinking about how to introduce my videos, but that's a bridge we can cross when we get there. In the meantime, I want to talk about the best teams in the Western Conference. I haven't really talked about the West in a minute, so there's a lot I want to say. This video is just going to be on the 4 teams I think have the best chance at going to the finals. I have at least 2 more videos already kinda half made going over the rest of the teams worth talking about, but as I mentioned, this is just gonna be about the true contenders. So without further delay, let's talk about the Golden State Warriors. The veteran Warriors tend to get overshadowed by teams like the Suns or the Lakers, who have shiny, newly assembled rosters, or teams that are just new to the conversation in general, like the Nuggets. But the Warriors still have a relevant, competitive roster that's looking to contend. It really can't be understated that this team has been the preeminent dynasty of the 2010s, and all those core members other than Andre Iguodala, shout out Andre by the way, have a happy retirement king, but the rest of them are still there and they're still very good. Steph Curry is in my opinion still a top 3, maybe top 4 player in the NBA, and Klay Thompson wasn't as good as he has been throughout his career last season, but I think he was very much still coming back from the devastating injury that saw him sit out for 2 full seasons, where he ruptured a ligament in his left knee as well as the Achilles tendon in his right leg. At 33 and now a full season and a half removed from his return, I think Klay's gonna have plenty left in the tank to give. And as much as I loathe this individual for all of his antics, Draymond Green remains a one-of-one defensive orchestrator that just inexplicably makes this whole thing work. Outside of their franchise 3, the Warriors most notably lost Jordan Poole and Dante DiVincenzo over the offseason, but acquired Chris Paul, who's shown some really promising stuff during the preseason at least. Having another playmaker on the floor, especially one of Chris Paul's caliber, along with the kind of shot makers Golden State have, is a lethal combination. And I think Chris Paul will foster a lot of the raw potential some of the young guys have, and in part because of that, but also because he had an amazing preseason himself, I expect Jonathan Kuminga to have somewhat of a breakout year. They also signed Dario Saric, who first and foremost gives some much needed size to this goddamn munchkin bunch of a team, but he's also a fairly decent shooter and pick and roll partner, so I think he's going to be really good for them. I think the Warriors are going to be a strong regular season team, anywhere from as high as like the 3rd seed to as low as maybe the 6th or 7th. I would be pretty surprised if Golden State was a play-in team. That obviously doesn't reflect their potential, but they aren't a young team, so there isn't much reward in nabbing a high seed, especially for a group that's this experienced. I feel like their mentality is to make it to the playoffs in good shape and just handle business from there. Whoever they have to face first, they'd probably have to face en route to another title anyways, so f*** it, we ball. I do feel confident that there are stronger teams in the West, however, so I could see the Warriors making a conference finals run, but falling to one of the upcoming teams. Speaking of, up next is the team that I had the hardest time evaluating for this video, and that's the Phoenix Suns. I thought about the trio of Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal for a while now. Like, seriously, I spent half a damn day writing and rewriting my thoughts on them. But honestly, I wasn't saying anything original. They're really good, it's a super cool big 3, but they kinda all do the same thing. So instead, what I want to talk about as it pertains to them is the plight of a modern mid-range team. The Suns put together 3 out of like the 5 or 6 best mid-range shooters in the league, which 20 or so years ago would have walked you to a championship, but now, in 2023, any halfway decent, high-volume 3-point shooting offense is likely gonna outscore an offense dominated by players who like to take mid-range shots. It brings me immense pain to say that, but it's true. The numbers just won't add up in their favor. So look, I think the biggest question the Suns actually have is how they'll be able to keep up an offense that doesn't stagnate with 3 ISO-heavy players, and it's very possible that it doesn't work when one of them goes cold, and they end up looking like the Celtics offense in the playoffs, but what's way more interesting to me is whether an offense set up like the Suns can still win it all in today's NBA. There's still players in the league who are efficient enough that their mid-range shots aren't completely useless to teams, but nothing like what the Suns have. Because again, they have like the Avengers of mid-range shooters, so if they can't do it, that might be the final nail in the coffin as far as an offense led by them goes. So yeah, that's the question I'll be thinking about during the season, and more specifically the playoffs. And I get that middies aren't the only shots the big 3 will be taking, but as I said, if they can't win it all while taking those shots, I don't know if anyone can. And as for the rest of the team, which was severely lacking in the playoffs, the Suns did an amazing job flushing out their roster, considering the strict budget they were on. They acquired a couple solid 3-and-D guys like Yuta Watanabe and Grayson Allen, as well as some players whose fits I don't exactly know how they'll work, like Eric Gordon and Nasir Little. Also, Yusuf Nurkic in replacement for DeAndre Ayton is a much better offensive fit. Nurkic is a good rebounder and a strong presence in the paint in general, but it's his ability to distribute the ball from down low that I really like. Having that post creation is going to hopefully make the Suns' offense a lot more dynamic, however the problems arise on defense. Nurk is going to get hunted in the playoffs, and he's just too slow-footed to stop any of the great bigs in the West. And that's not just an issue Nurkic has, it's one the whole team faces. They're just not strong enough defensively, particularly on the inside, and I think a team like the Lakers or the Nuggets will be able to pick them apart. I think this team will be great in the regular season, a top 4 seed almost certainly, maybe like a 5th seed if they were really just cruising, and I strongly believe that the Suns will go to the conference finals unless they're matched up against one of the next 2 teams earlier on. One of those 2 teams is the Los Angeles Lakers, and I have a pretty straightforward reasoning as to why I think they'll do well this season. The Lakers as they are now were thrown together at the trade deadline, made it to the conference finals, which very few saw coming, and now, not only have they had a full offseason for improved continuity, but they've also added a few pieces that have made them better. Most notably, there's Gabe Vincent, Taurean Prince, Christian Wood, and Jackson Hayes. Those additions, along with guys like Jared Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura, and the obvious LeBron and AD, give the Lakers a tremendous amount of defensive versatility. With their size and switchability, they're going to be a tough matchup for any offense in the West and will likely have something to throw at just about anybody. The biggest question surrounding the Lakers is how consistent Anthony Davis will be. And not just as in being healthy and available, but also being dominant on a game-to-game basis. I've talked about how he can have a godly performance one night, just to be a near no-show the next, so I won't go into it too much, but the Lakers now officially need AD to be their best player. I guess. That's what everyone's saying, at least. I was under the impression that AD's needed to be their best player since they won in 2020, but maybe the fact that he barely played over the following 2 seasons made people forget that. Point being, if that wasn't a sure thing before, it certainly is now. LeBron is still one of the best players in the league when healthy, but that man's nearly a millennium old, so if he's supposed to be your crutch in the playoffs, you've fundamentally gone wrong somewhere as a basketball team. There's not much else I can say about AD though. He's either able to be there or he's not. I can't really speculate when injuries are a by chance thing, but assuming that he's available, he's one of the best players in the NBA on both ends of the floor, and I have no doubts that he would be able to be a number 1 option on a championship team. And with a revolving door of guards and forwards that can shoot, the Lakers have fixed one of, if not their biggest problem plaguing them since they won 3 seasons ago. Hopefully, at least. There's kind of this weird curse where players become much worse shooters when they join the Lakers, but either way, I expect them to be a relatively conservative team in the regular season, considering some of their most valuable players are old or injury prone, but for them to still be a top 6 seed. And if they're healthy for the playoffs, the Lakers could easily go back to the conference finals, and the gap between them and the team that beat them last season is much closer than before. Which makes the team to beat in the Western Conference still, but now the reigning champions, the Denver Nuggets. To validate some who might disagree with me about the Nuggets being the best team in the West, I understand that they probably got worse overall this offseason. Losing Bruce Brown in free agency was definitely a blow to this team's depth, as well as Jeff Green, who you might not have assumed, but he averaged 17 minutes over all 20 games of the championship run. But the simple reason I don't think it'll matter that much is because the gap between the Nuggets and the Lakers, or whoever you would consider to be the next best team in the West, was so significant that it just kinda doesn't really matter. Obviously that's an oversimplification, and one of the hardest things to do as a team is repeat, but I seriously think that the Nuggets were so good last season that they could afford to let the gap get smaller. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA currently, Michael Porter Jr. is one of the best shooters in the NBA, Aaron Gordon continues to be criminally underrated, and you might think Jamal Murray is overrated, but show me what other players can put up the numbers he did during the playoffs and the finals, and I'll show you a list of names you swear he's much worse than. Also, I think guys like Christian Brown, Zeke Naji, Reggie Jackson, and Justin Holiday can step up into bigger roles and make up for some of the loss suffered. All in all, there's just nothing that's happened in the Western Conference since last season that I think moves the needle enough to tip the scales in favor of another team. The Denver Nuggets will likely have a pretty dominant regular season and be a top 3 seed, with a really good chance at them being number 1 again. And as of now, they're my favorites to come out of the West and go back to the finals. Between the Nuggets and one of the likely finals representatives from the Eastern Conference, such as the Bucks or Celtics, I still like the Nuggets' chances. I think at that point it would be close enough for the series to go either way, but if I had to put my money on somebody right now, as the season's starting, I'd pick the Denver Nuggets to win it all and become back-to-back champions. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Our wait is finally over and the NBA is here. I can't wait for everything that's going to go down this season and all the stories I'll be able to cover on this channel. So enjoy the 2023-2024 season, everyone. I'll be back soon, but until then, take care.